Introduction to Python by Elizabeth Nyamu. In this course, we will be using Python version 3. While we are programming in Python, there are a few things to keep in mind. First things first, Python is case sensitive. Secondly, spacing is important. Third, you will encounter error messages, but this does not mean that you are having bad code. It means that your computer cannot interpret the code. Error messages will help you learn. Without further ado, let us get started. This course has been well structured to help you develop fluency in Python. Whether you are new to programming or have experience in other languages. Each lesson includes videos, text summaries, and coding activities for each concept, and finally, course, a course project. For experienced programmers, you can watch the videos and do the project first. For beginners, I strongly recommend watching the videos, reading the text summaries, performing the coding activities for a detailed walkthrough of each topic before attempting your final project. Here are the lessons in this course. Lesson 1, Data types and operators. These are the basic building blocks of Python. These include the data types, the operators, built-in functions in Python, and you'll also go through the coding guidelines so as to have more Pythonic code. In our second lesson, we'll go through control structures. This will include having conditional statements, Boolean expressions, loops, and other functions, including list comprehensions. In lesson 3, functions, we will see tools that are used in a day-to-day basis as a data analyst. You will learn about the functions, variable scope, lambda expressions, iterators and generators, and documentation. In lesson 4, finally, we will show you how to run your code locally and using scripts to take in raw input and work with files. You'll also learn about error handling and how to import different libraries, whether local, standard, and even third parties. Additionally, we will also experiment using an interpreter. So let us get started with our first lesson, data types and operators. Python has several arithmetic operators. Most follow the mathematical order of operations. The first four, like for example, addition, subtraction, division, multiplication, all follow the order of operations, meaning that if one wanted to perform an addition or a subtraction before a multiplication and a division, they'll have to use brackets. In Python, addition is symbolized with a plus symbol, subtraction uses a dash symbol, multiplication an asterisk, division, a forward slash. In addition to those ma- arithmetic operators, we have mod or modulus, that returns the remainder after dividing, represented by the percentage sign. Exponentiation, which returns a value raised by another value, is represented using a double asterisk. We also have division that runs down to the nearest integer that uses a double forward slash. It is now time for you have a quiz and use what you have learned before this to see how arithmetic operators are used in Python. In this quiz, we are going to be calculating my average shopping bill. So, over the last 3 weeks, I have been spending Kenyan shillings 550 cents, 978, and 2010 Kenyan shillings for shopping. What is the average shopping bill for the last 3 week period? Write an expression to calculate the mean, round it down to the nearest integer, and print to view the result. Pause the video here to read the expression. As you can see in our solution, we took in the shopping bill that were that occurred during the last 3 weeks and used a double forward slash as a division to round down to the nearest integer by 3. I hope you also got the same. If not, you'll still have more time to practice. As you have seen before, we have been using raw values in our calculations, but in this topic, we'll be introducing variables. Variables are used to hold raw numbers and are more relatable to us. In fact, they're used in Python all the time. For example, I come from a small village town with a population of roughly 2,900 people. So as to not keep having to remember this number in my calculations in the future, I will store this in a variable called home population to hold my value. That will hold my value. So now, whenever I want to know or to remember how many people are in my small village, I'll just call home population and easily access the 2,900. In Python, there are rules to follow when naming variables. One conventional rule is that it's better to use a descriptive variable name. For example, in our previous case, when I wanted to represent a population in my hometown, I used home population. I'll rather use home population than using a value like x. However, this does not mean that using x is wrong in Python. Our second rule is that we are to use ordinary letters, numbers, and underscores in our variable names. Also, names cannot start with spaces and they need to start with a letter or an underscore. Third rule we have when naming variables is that we cannot use reserved words or built in identifiers. These are keywords that have important purposes in Python. Some examples are false, true, class, finally, and others listed. This is not a complete list, but during the course, we will encounter such keywords. Fourth, the Pythonic way to name variables is to use all lowercase letters and underscores to separate the words. This is also known as the snake case. That is because it tends to connect the words used with underscores. As you can see in our Pythonic variable names. In our non-Pythonic variable names, we see the first variable with spaces, which I had mentioned earlier, should not be used, the second in capital, and the third using camel case. The second and third examples in the non-Pythonic variable names are still valid in Python and will not cause any error. But the more Pythonic way of naming variables is using the snake case. Data types, integers and floats. Here we'll be discussing integers and floats. They're the two data types that are used in Python to represent numeric values. Int is used to represent integer values. For example, the number of people in my town, 2900. Float is used to represent decimals or floating point values. For example, the time in minutes that it will take to get to the next town, 15.6 minutes. You can create a value that follows the data type using the following syntax. X equals, where X in this case would be an integer of 5 and Y would be a float of 8.0. We will move on to our next data type, bools or boolean. Boolean data type holds one of the values true or false, which are encoded as 0 or 1 or 0 represent respectively. Sorry.